Hello, my interesting internet individual. I'm supposed to be writing a paper right now, but I have been sitting at my computer screen for literally 4 hours now and I have 2 paragraphs. Clearly, that means I need to take a break, and I figured what better way to take a break than to make a video sharing my top 7 tips for succeeding in online classes. I really tried with these tips to make them able to be as individual to you as possible, like tips that will help you find what you need to succeed, not just tips that's telling you what you should do or what you should need to be great at online courses or at courses in general. So jumping right into it, this is 7 tips for online classes! Fun fact, these could also work for working at home, not just going to class at home. Number 1 is know your needs before classes start. So sit down somewhere you think you're going to sit when you've got your live sessions or when you need to sit and do your homework or any of that, and try watching a video or reading something and see whether or not you actually can get all the way through the video without getting distracted or interrupted, or get all the way through the reading without getting distracted or interrupted. If you're somebody who naturally gets distracted with reading anyway, maybe count the amount of times you get distracted and see which area you're able to be in that you find yourself distracted the least amount. So now the same goes with comfort. What you're wearing. Don't dress up and sit somewhere that you think is going to look super nice to go video in on a class that you technically might not even have to share your video for anyway. You're not going to be paying attention to your class if you're more worried about what everybody is seeing in the video while they're looking at you. If you're allowed to, just turn your video off and sit wherever is most comfortable, however is most comfortable, and pay only attention to what you're seeing, and don't let anybody else have to see you if you don't want to. If you have to have your video on because your professor is the type of person who likes to see your face, then don't worry about what's behind you. Make sure that what is behind you is maybe a blank space so that it's also not distracting to the other people in class. But mostly make sure wherever you are is comfortable. Comfort is the key. You will be more inclined to learn or pay attention if you're comfortable, if you're not thinking about where you're sitting, or if you're not thinking about what you're wearing or how hot it is or that you're thirsty. You know, also make sure you have close proximity to the bathroom. You don't want to be in the middle of class and really have to go to the bathroom and feel like you can't just get up and go really quick. I don't necessarily see this being a huge problem for most people, but you know, just in case you happen to be outside while you're studying, you know, and maybe make sure that you have a direct eyesight to the restroom that you might need to use if you suddenly have to. This also pertains to any equipment. Make sure your headset or your microphone or your camera or whatever work before you remote in for your first class. You don't want to be that person who's trying to answer a question and your microphone won't work and the whole class is sitting there staring at you for fucking 20 minutes while you're trying to figure out what's wrong with your mic. Tip number 2. After you have that space, tuck in hard. If you have to, put caution tape around that area with a sign that forewarns all ye who enter here will be forced to live the rest of their life with night sweats. Do whatever you have to make it very clear that that space is yours and needs to be left alone. Not only you while you are in that space doing things, but any work you may also leave in that area. It's extremely frustrating, especially when you live with other individuals, to have a whole paper out or research or notes or homework or a project that you're working on and run to go get something or just go to sleep for the night, and you wake up the next morning and half your stuff is gone or it's ruined because somebody spilled something on it. So whatever you do, make sure that you verify with the rest of your members of your family or your roommates, whoever, that you are John Travolta or Jake Gyllenhaal and this is your bubble, boy. I'm pretty sure most of the people old enough to get either of those references are probably not in school anymore, but you know what, I am, so it's okay. Number 3 is if you don't know what does keep you organized, try everything at once. It drives me nuts when somebody's like, oh, just pick one thing and stick to it. You don't actually know what one thing works for you yet. That's probably why you're looking. Why try only that one thing and force yourself to stick to it even though it doesn't work for you? I personally believe that taking up every method you could possibly think of and getting yourself set up to do them all at once will help you way more, because it'll put a huge project in front of you that you'll realize right away, well, I don't feel like doing the effort for that option. I don't feel like doing the effort for that option. But then you'll also find that, like, oh, preparing this method was fun, and that you want to keep going back to it. This can be anywhere from like having a whiteboard that you get to put your assignments on, having a journal, having post-it notes, having a cork board, hell, even having a colorful piece of paper that you just write on and then thumbtack next to the computer while you sit there. It all depends on what works for you. And I personally think that rounding up every option you think might work for you and just trying to do them all at once is the best method, because naturally the ones that you think are too much effort will just fall off, and you'll find yourself automatically picking out one or two that you keep going back to. Also, in my experience, I have found that the people who I know are truly organized don't actually have only one method of being organized. Everybody I know has at least two methods that they work together with, rather than just one strict specific thing they stick to. I personally have a whiteboard and a journal to-do list method. I've tried having like a dated journal, but it just doesn't work for me. Personally, I find for me that having the regular journal that I can make my own to-do list in and then break that to-do list up and separate the tasks into different categories works best for me. And then I'm able to also put that up here on the whiteboard as a very in-your-face visual reminder for me that this is what needs to be done as soon as possible. One of my friends has a really excellent calendar and post-it note system. So she has essentially a whiteboard that has the days of the week on it, and then she puts post-it notes up on the whiteboard or writes notes on the whiteboard, but then also schedules things into her Google Calendar. That method doesn't particularly work for me, but the whole point of this is me not telling you what organization method should work for you, but rather hopefully this tip will help you find the organization method that works for you. Tip number 4 is actually one of my biggest pet peeves. It's read the motherforking syllabus. The syllabus is literally this all-knowing document that says everything you will need to know about that course. Not only does it have all of the rules in it that by attending this class you're agreeing to follow, it also has a wonderful list of all of your assignments and the dates they will be due. They'll generally look like this in table form with the assignment listed out and then the dates that they'll be due next to them, or the dates that you'll be working on that material. It literally tells you everything you need to know about every assignment that will be due right here. You can literally spend an hour on syllabus day filling into your Google Calendar all of your due dates for all of your assignments, making sure that you already have a reminder in your phone so you don't ever have to worry about either A, missing assignment, or B, being late on an assignment. I'd like to add the fact that a syllabus is actually a contract between a teacher and a student. By attending that class, you are agreeing to follow those rules and guidelines. It's probably a good idea to read over all of the rules that you're agreeing to. For example, I've encountered professors who require you to sign in your cell phone at the beginning of the class, and many people are not okay with this and would leave that class rather than sign in their cell phones. Tip number 5 is to not be afraid of professors. Though they may seem like all-knowing beings that are casting judgment upon you at every moment of the day, they are actually not. And many of them actually vividly remember what it was like to be a student struggling through the workload of an undergraduate degree while trying to also navigate adulting for the first time in their lives. Professors are surprisingly sympathetic, if you're not a douche about it. Don't take advantage of your professor's goodwill though. Many people go to the opposite end of the never talking to your professor extreme and act as if their professor is their best friend. I have personally encountered classmates who have looked for excused absences because they were hungover. So don't take advantage of your professor's goodwill, but do take advantage of the resources your professor represents to you. Step number 6 is write everything down right away. Do not count on your information-addled brain to remember anything, even if it's just 2 minutes away from the point where you're gonna need to remember it. If you think there's an off chance that you will need to know that tidbit later on, write it down. Typing is good, but writing is better. Even if you're scheduling your assignments in your Google Calendar, you should probably also have somewhere where you can write them down so that they engrave in your mind, they're there, they need to be done. You're not just waiting on your Google Calendar to remind you 30 minutes before it's due. And my last tip for online classes is before they even start, mentally check yourself into understanding that just because you're at home doesn't mean you won't still be spending 6 to 8 hours a day on schoolwork. Develop a work mode switch. So this has probably been the most heavily cited issue by my family and friends who've had to switch to online classes. When they were in a classroom, it didn't necessarily register as spending 8 hours working on something, whereas when they're at home, with all of their favorite non-work related distractions strewn about them, it becomes amazingly hard to ignore all of the tantalizing things around you. It's ridiculously easy not to give yourself enough time for an assignment or reading or project because that time isn't already predetermined for you by your physically requiring to be somewhere. Having that mental work mode switch, as I like to call it, will also help with the hella temptation that is YouTube. Very commonly in online classes, especially at the college level, you will find that a lot of your supplemental material and or even the recorded lectures of your professors themselves are on YouTube. Yay! The YouTubes! It's super easy to go from watching a recorded lecture to accidentally letting that video play through to the next video of your favorite vlogger. And then, if you're like me, you look at the clock a few videos later and realize that you have spent 6 hours definitely not working. My next tip is to gently click that like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe if you're new here. I make videos about all sorts of crap, but mostly trying not to be fat and trying to be smart. So, if you want to try to be smart and try not to be fat, this might be the place for you. So those are my tips for getting prepared to take online classes / not letting online classes suck completely. It's way more about making yourself comfortable and finding what works for you than having somebody tell you, you need to do these specific steps. Every online class is going to be different. You may have some synchronous online classes, which means that you have to video chat and or remote into a live lecture at a specific time on a specific day, usually every week on that same time and day. An asynchronous class, however, is one that doesn't meet at any specific time, but rather you just have to complete the work before the deadlines. How you navigate either of those courses is going to be different just because of the material and the way it's presented in those courses. So it's impossible for anyone really to give you a concrete step on, this is how you succeed no matter what. Because really it all comes down to crafting your workspace for your own personal success. If you let it, online classes can be the best thing that ever happened to you because you, for once in your life, have the ability to set up your learning environment however it best suits you. However, if you're also the type of person who strives off of regular and rigorous structure, you might find online classes an extra challenge because it's difficult for you to set up that own structure. So it's really difficult to give any narrowed down tips on any specific ways I feel like would help you in the actual function of studying because all of us study differently. What actually works for me might not work for you. Just like the example I gave in being organized. My friend's post-it and calendar method does not work for me at all. I absolutely need that journal that I can write to-do lists in, and I absolutely need this whiteboard where I can write important things on for me to visually be slapped in the face by them. If you are a frequenter of online classes as well and have any tips that you would like to share, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. Learning is really all about how you go after the information and your drive to receive it. And it's impossible to frame any form of set of tips to be able to give you an outline of how to make information interesting to you no matter what it is. I wish I could, because I think that's the dream of like every teacher, is just to have one formula of no matter what subject you input, it outputs general interest by your students. But I hope that these tips helped otherwise, or at least helped you knowing which direction to look for to find what ends up keeping you successful. That being said, thank you for pressing the like button. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. If you haven't, thank you anyway just for watching this, because, you know, I don't know, I like making videos. This is what relaxes me and makes me now feel motivated to go sit back down and try writing my own paper. Just in case you're wondering, I'm writing a paper on gender themes on Dostoevsky's Notes from the Underground. It's riveting.